Some people are made for living at sea and some people just are not. The Shoppie girl that we should call Serbia was one of those that really should not have gone to sea. Serbia only lasted a month on the Table Fly cruise itinerary, which for her was 2 cruises. She made a cunt out of it in the best way possible. We dropped anchor in Qatar due to the size of the ship versus the size of the dock. We were simply too big to dock, so for anyone to get ashore you had to take a tender, which is a small boat that would shuttle passengers and crew from the ship's pontoon to the designated landing site. Due to the distance from the ship to the landing site, it was rare for crew to get ashore in Qatar. Only the togs were guaranteed to step foot on there, as they were the ones that had to take the cheesy gangway photos. For the rest of the crew to get ashore here, you had to put your name down as a tour escort. If you were an escort, you were the liaison between the tour operator and the ship, and this duty was put down to a lottery. Serbia, on her second ever cruise, won the lottery and had a morning tour which would only last 4 hours. Once the passengers were back on the landing site, she could stay ashore until it was time for her to return, and she took full advantage of this. Serbia finished her tour, then walked around the town. She came across a local shop and found the backroom stock. This backroom stock was the local paint stripper, which was a local spirit made out of plums. It was plum moonshine. This stuff was lethal. The Rakia, as she called it, was similar in every way to the moonshine that came from her native Serbia, and is that strong it could degrease ball bearings. She purchased 4 bottles for next to nothing. When I asked her later on that day, she told me the 4 bottles cost her €10. Each bottle of the paint stripper of doom was half a litre plastic Coca-Cola bottle. I guess the locals loved their recycling policy. Anyway, I digress. Serbia, with her 4 litres of doom, necked half a bottle just to test it. She went back to the line of passengers in the landing zone with a bottle of doom in her hand and casually swigging from it as she joined the queue. 20 minutes into the queue, she had finished 1 bottle of the moonshine. With the final gulp, Serbia screwed the lid back onto the empty, then tossed it over her shoulder, narrowly missing her pensioner's head. She let out an almighty belch and opened up the next bottle. 30 minutes into the queue, she had half drunk her second bottle and started taking a disliking to some of the passengers. This one passenger in front of her kept holding up the queue. Not that anyone was going anywhere, the passenger was just old and decrepit and slow. He must have been in his late 80s. The old man once again held up the queue and Serbia kissed her teeth really loud enough for everyone in the nearby area to hear. Eventually he caught up with the queue and it moved on. 40 minutes into the queue, Serbia had nearly finished her second bottle. There might have been about a quarter of it left. I don't really know as I wasn't there. This story is based solely on what she told me after she sobered up later that day. The old man slowed Serbia down again, and she now lobbed the now empty second bottle at the poor old reptile's head. It smacked him hard and the bottle ricocheted off the poor bastard's bald patch and slammed into another old reptile's face. The slow old man fell to the floor and Serbia just took a long step over the poor cowering old bastard as though he wasn't even there. There was a massive gasp from everyone in the nearby vicinity. People ran to help the floored old man as well as the old lady that took the direct ricochet to the face. I guess during the incident another passenger ran to get help, as in no time at all there was a mob of ship security, a cadet and a few officers legging it down towards Serbia, who at this point had already begun to consume her third bottle. The mob of angry security officers and the cadet jumped onto Serbia, who went to great lengths to resist and evade capture. Serbia started to throw punches and kicks at anyone who came near her. The poor ginger cadet, who happened to be the same cadet that melted into my cabin floor when I gave him the 151 proof rum, was bitten on the arm. He girled out and stayed out for the rest of the fight. Serbia continued to kick, scream, flout and curse until she was eventually forced to the floor and handcuffed. The next tender arrived, but no passenger went on board. It was just Serbia and the beat-up security team and officers. The cadet was left behind and made to stand out in the blistering heat as punishment for being a pussy. Serbia had her hands cuffed behind her back and was dragged onto the tender, kicking and screaming in both English and Serbian. To minimise the risks to the crew and herself, she was tied to a chair. It was an undignified 30-minute trip back to the ship's pontoon, as by this point Serbia had pissed herself and thrown At this point, Serbia had pissed herself and thrown up all down her top. As the tender boat pulled alongside the pontoon, there was the medical staff with a stretcher. The medical team entered the tender boat and set up the stretcher. Once again, it took the might of everyone to force Serbia onto the stretcher. They used the medical restraints on her legs, then lifting her torso, they removed the handcuffs. After receiving a few elbows and punches, they managed to restrain her arms. With a lot of effort, the Serbian wheeled off to lift from the main pontoon. They arrived at deck 4 and wheeled her to the medical centre. Roughly 10 minutes later, the Serbian's boss, the shop manager, was present in the medical centre along with the commercial manager. Serbia was about to be breathalyzed. This could only be legally done with the ship's doctor, the chief of security, and the offender's line manager present. They forced the device into her gob and she blew a reading that was nearly 20 times over the 2-unit threshold. She was fucked and she knew it. Once Serbia had sobered up and calmed down, she was escorted to her cabin and was confined there with her cabin mate. The cabin mate had to remain there to make sure the Serbian didn't leave and make a nuisance of herself. It was after dinner, and the pianist and I were walking along the deck. It was after dinner, and the pianist and I was walking along deck 4 forward so we could get up to my cabin on deck 6. We left the M1 corridor and went through the Warren, which was a densely packed area of crew cabins. We walked towards the Shoppie corridor, where the forward stairwell was located, to get to the tech corridor, where my cabin was located on deck 6. We walked through towards the Shoppie corridor, where the forward stairwell was located, to get to the tech corridor, where my cabin was located on deck 6. As we passed the Shoppie corridor, we noticed Serbian's cabin door open. There's a bit of a cabin party going on. At this time, the pianist and I stuck our heads in to investigate, and we were invited in. Serbia was there along with her cabin mate, who we should call Bulgarian. There were 2 Serbian togs, and they were all drinking the moonshine. The bottle was passed to the pianist, and he took a gulp and shuddered, then passed it over to me. I took a swig. This moonshine hurt. It burnt as it went down. My eyes began to water, and I could feel the heat leaving my mouth to my throat and then down to my stomach. This was to be our last drink with a Serbian, as the bottle was passed around and the story was told. Serbia went home the following day and was never seen again on any ship.